I gotta get another shirt. This is ridiculous. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 273. As you can see, we are out of the office. We are in my corner. This is actually the corner I sit every night when we do our movies. I got my table set up here. So this is as real as it gets. I'm Jay McInnes. This is Sharp Real Estate Story for today. Episode, again, 273. We're going to title this one Then and Now. We're going to show a little progression of what's been taking place at a little known spot in downtown Vancouver. What I like to call Coal Harbour East. I've actually purchased the domain now, so don't get any ideas of getting ahead of the curve here with that branding. But this is, quote, a wasteland, quoted by Mr. David Eby, still don't know how to pronounce his last name. So again, is this section of Coal Harbour finally going to get built? The section I'm talking about is east of Canada Place, all the way up to the current tent city at One Crab Park, or Portside Park, as it's also called. So you all know Waterfront Station. So this was built by CP Rail. Where is it? All the way back in August of 1914, a couple years before I kicked off my game here. So let me show some images here. As you can see, image number 1, a wasteland, as the big man says. Image 2 here, a little bird's eye view. You can see, what are we called here? Waterfront Station, of course, on the left side there. And then a little bird's eye view here, of course, all the tracks and all that. So basically now, today, it's rail lines, gravel lots, and service roads. The fastest way, Al, you can actually get from Railtown to the heart of downtown for your charging needs, if you need to come from that side. But anyway, so what is this? The city, for, what are we, 60, 70, 30, 50 plus years now, has been putting proposals forward, or have had proposals put forward to them in what to do with this land. To date, absolutely zero has taken place. So let's just dive into this. In a 2019 Daily Hive article on this, we're quoting, every global city has a big city multi-modal, M-O-D-A-L, I've never heard of this before, multimodal transportation hub. New York City has Grand Central Station. London has Waterloo Station. Berlin has Bahnhof. You've been there, Al? And Toronto has Union Station. Metro Vancouver's equivalent to all this hub is downtown Vancouver's Waterfront Station. So where you've got SkyTrain lines, the West Coast Express, C-Bus, and several major bus routes all combining into that one hub. So this could be our hopped Bahnhof. Okay? If they do it right. But again, today, wasteland. So last week, we have had a resurgence of discussion about that land yet again, and what it could be, what it could mean to us, how we can maximize the downtown, I guess technically is part of the downtown east side, but revitalize this and continue the trend. So you may know, real estate people will know, which are hopefully not watching, but the Third Harbor Green building, right beside the Shaw Tower at the foot of Thurlow Street, was quoted the last waterfront lot in downtown Vancouver, which was a complete lie. Great marketing, and it worked, although the market was a little dicey back then, but it was a huge lie because just east of Canada Place, where we're discussing, is acres and acres and acres of waterfront. This sits right in front of Water Street and all those historic buildings that line up along the tracks, as you know, which lead again to the station. So there's an abundance of waterfront down there. Obviously, highest and best use is, in this case, a transport hub, but following that quickly will be residential real estate, as we will have Coal Harbour eventually, maybe by the time my kids get to my age, completed down there. But this is going to be the hub of doing so. So today we're going to take a little history lesson back down on what has been offered on this land in the past, where the ideas have come from, what they've looked like then to now. See that tie back into the title, Al? So we're going to start all the way back in 1966, when my parents were in their 20s, I'm guessing, 45, yeah, about 20. So may I introduce you Project 200, okay? So Project 200 was proposed waterfront redevelopment program in 1966 in Vancouver. It earned the name from the $200 million price tag of investment needed for the project, best known for its waterfront freeway. But when the plan was unveiled 2.5 weeks after they originally unveiled the plan, then they came back to it 2.5 weeks later, the initial shock of the $200 million price tag was trumped by now an updated $275 million price tag. So as you can imagine, as experts say from back then, the proposal died through lack of federal and provincial funding. So some photos here, image number 1 of what it could have looked like down on the waterfront here. Image number 2, we've got the front page of a Vancouver Sun ad from way back in 1966. It made the cover. So obviously a huge deal for Vancouver here, or what it was proposed to be. Image 3 here, we've got the proposed highway. So just a blurb I've taken from, where did I steal this from? evalazarus.com, evelazarus.com. Thank you for your kind words. The plan to construct a $340 million freeway system that would connect Vancouver to the Trans-Canada Highway and to Highway 99. The freeway would run between Union and Pryor Street. It would wipe out Strathcona, most of Chinatown, much of the West End with an 8-lane freeway, plop an ocean parkway along English Bay, and turn Vancouver into a mini Los Angeles. So it would have dramatically changed Coal Harbour and downtown Vancouver as we know it. We jump to the next image here. From the right side, we would have had tunneling from under Chinatown to a main plaza, which is at the section of Coal Harbour North that we're talking about right now. As we move to the next one, we've got an image of what the West End would look like with 8-lane monstrosity chopping it in half. And then on the final photo here, we've got that plaza. So this is the section you'll see on the bottom left of this image here. This was a 1968 image, revitalization of the whole idea as well. You've got Woodward's down on the top or on the bottom left. So that's Abbott Street. So Abbott Street would have cut right down to the water. You've got this government plaza right on the water here. And then in front of that, on the water would have been that freeway extension. And looking at these images, if you were to head down there now, you've got the 200 Granville Street building, which is the Vancouver Sun building, also by the Price Waterhouse Cooper building, Australian company. That's, I believe, Granville Square, they call it. Anyway, that is a building that was very similar to the renderings that would have taken place down there, right off of the transit hub there. So that is the resemblance of what all of these would have looked like had it gone through the modernist, they were calling it, imagery, had it have gone through way back then in the 60s. So that got cleared off the list. We move on. We're gonna jump it all the way up to the 90s. Now here we've only got early 90s. We've got a rendering of the ideas of what's going on down there and what did they want to do. Again, it's a main concourse as we have one kind of walkway now to the C-bus station over the tracks, but it's how can we utilize the airspace over the tracks seems to be a very common theme here. So just to cut back here, all the way back in the 90s, City Hall designed a plan for the center of downtown waterfront Portland's site. They were calling it at that stage around the C-bus terminal north of Waterfront Station between Crab Park and the east side of Canada Place. Federal government, one of the long list of entities with an interest in the area, just decided that they did not want to move on it, so it didn't go anywhere. That has largely been the story on this prime site to date. So they re-brought up the conversation saying, we are not going to do anything about this site again. We're going to leave it, too much money, yada, yada, yada. Then comes the late 90s. And again, we remember the 90s. That was the NDP doing what they did to the province way back when. I just got another interesting image here we're going to cut to in 1 second. Late 90s, municipal governments again shot down the proposal by none other than Steve Wynn, as you know that name, who was a large casino operator in Las Vegas, naturally, to build a Vegas-sized casino and hotel resort and privately funded convention center north of the station in the area of the C-bus terminal. And again, those plans went nowhere. Unfortunately, there's no renderings that I could see online for what that would have looked like, but I'm sure it would have been very interesting. Now, this image right here from early 2000s, I just thought was interesting. As you can kind of see the Canada Place in the background. This is actually where today the Fairmont Pacific Rim sits. And as you can see, they have built a viaduct and it sits above a lot of parking and all that sort of stuff there. But I thought this was an interesting image. I do remember these days when there was absolutely nothing there at street level, and they built up from there. So anyway, something that is kind of, but not really associated. Let's fast forward to 2007 now. Another very interesting one. Planning process was launched in 2007 due to the desire to create a comprehensive waterfront plan after the Vancouver Whitecaps proposed to fund and build a 15 to 30,000 seat outdoor stadium on the waterfront rail lines, if you recall. On the airspace, partially owned by club owner Greg Kerfoot, but technical difficulties with the plan led to discussions with the Port of Vancouver on the building a stadium and the area of the C-bus terminal. These new stadium plans have since, of course, been put on hold, and the Whitecaps have committed themselves to BC Place. But if you look at these renderings, this is the one I could find only. Again, jutting way out into the water there. Very interesting. Something unique that Vancouver needs more of, in my opinion, but of course, a little too ambitious, and that was put on hold. We now fast forward to the 2010s. We've got in the 2010s, again, it was brought back to a very basic waterfront hub, buildings behind it, commercial buildings behind it. As we jump forward from there, we've got a 2019 news release, no imagery, but again, that was dropped. And then forward in 2019, we've got only office space, hotels, retail, restaurants, and pubs and other commercial services are allowed. And when coupled with well-designed public spaces, including large outdoor plazas suitable for major events, a vibrant waterfront district could and would be created. The City of Vancouver currently has no plans to revisit and implement the CWHF anytime soon. So again, everything kibosh, 2019, the update. Given that the municipality is preoccupied, remember this is 2019, with a number of other projects and priorities, including the redevelopment of viaduct removal of Northeast False Creek. And naturally, nothing has happened at all with that. There was a tower designed by Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill Architects, who is a Chicago-based firm behind the Burj Khalifa, as we all know, which I believe still is currently the largest building out there in the world. Cadillac Fairview proposed this project, but was sent back to the drawing board due to its size. It was far larger than outlined in the CWHF, which is the Central Waterfront Hub framework, than they were allowed. And essentially, its visual impact to the historic buildings in the area was too severe, apparently, especially to the CPR building, which is the waterfront station there. And the proposal was finally canceled in March of 2021. We'll go look at those images now. Obviously a very dramatic design as we look back through these general images. Then we are revisited again to this site, finally in 2022. According to city staff, the upcoming exercise to create a master plan is expected to cost $2.6 million over 2 years for the city staff and consultancies. The planning process could launch in 2024. So in 2022, they said we're going to get back into it. It's going to cost us $2.6 million to look into this, and we may be ready in 2024. We now here in 2024, first half of 2024, many interested parties are expected to commit to their roles and funding with formal memorandums and understandings of implementation, yada, yada, yada. And these are the images of the new proposal. This to me is nice. It reminds me of Circular Quay, actually, in downtown Sydney, where we were just at. But there's a big caveat to all this still. These renderings, of course, it looks great. Lots of glass, very modern, lots of green to the east. connecting the difference of the foreshore with Crab Park. I highly doubt they will let that be park forever because the value of the land is simply too high. But again, the biggest issue I see with us moving forward again is this next statement. It's hard to think a single redevelopment in the region will, with the potential to be as transformative as Vancouver's central downtown waterfront, but it's also a difficult endeavor for several reasons. The main one being, there's a part of Canada's business port to the east, arrive with railway, the Helijet terminal, and one of Western Canada's busiest multi-mode transit hubs. There are private land owners, including Cadillac Fairview, Whitecaps owner Greg Kerfoot, all three levels of government and their various ministries and agencies are involved, including Transport Canada, the Port Authority, BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, Tourism BC, PavCo, TransLink, naturally, and the City of Vancouver, not forgetting the Musqueam, Squamish, and I thought I had this, goddamn. Tsleil-Waututh First Nations are also expected to participate in these discussions, as are Via Rail, CP, and last but not least, CN Railway. So there are vastly too many cooks in the kitchen, as they would say, and it's not going to goddamn happen again, in my humblest of opinions. These renderings, the interesting thing about it that you're looking at here as the final project and the latest renderings were done by an architecture firm called Perkins and Will, who have actually been engaged by no one. They have just taken this upon themselves to dive into this site and create images of what it could possibly be. They have quoted saying they assume that nothing they're doing here will be taken and run with, but at least hopefully it gives an idea of what they have conceptually designed and some ideas that will get picked up and then in turn mold itself into something that actually gets done. That's it. So again, we are back at the table. We've now spent an additional $2.6 million in the last 2 years on the idea of this taking place, if they kept it within that budget, which I highly doubt they have. But this is where it's at. This would be a good look for the area. Other things they're discussing as well is expansion of the convention center at Canada Place. If they ever needed expansion, they could move east. If they do something like this, that obviously hardlines anything like that happening. But of course, it needs to be done similar to the tax break that Concord's getting on the other side of the water there in False Creek, that nothing has happened on that land yet. We've seen renderings, of course, no progress. So what are the tax breaks being had here by specific entities involved? There's a lot of city entities involved as well. I just think there's too many people that own it. They need to clear the slate, give it to one or two people and just run with it. But as we all know, it's not gonna happen. So Coal Harbour, then and now, that's what we're looking at. We've got an interesting one coming up next week as well, with some more ridiculousness that's been taking place. And until that time, take care out in that snow, and I will see you in 7 years.